right, welcome everyone. This is Chris, and thanks so much for coming by. I'm glad you could make it, and I'm glad you're here, and we're really going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to actually do a great scene of a street scene with figures. I know many of you really enjoy figure work. I've done some figure work here and there on my channel, and every time I do figure work, everybody enjoys it. I get a lot of views. People comment. They love it. They're really excited about it. So I'm going to do a few more figure videos here where we're doing some figures in watercolor. Why not? Everyone always enjoys this. Whenever I do this, again, everyone just really enjoys it. So I'm so glad you stopped by. And I just wanted to mention, hey, if you like this channel, you're excited, you're having fun with the drawing and painting in watercolor on my channel, all you have to do is just hit the subscribe button just below the screen here. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the subscribe button. You can hit that button. You'll get alerts when my new videos come out. We do new videos every week. You can also hit the notification bell, and that will let you know exactly when my video comes out. So whether it comes out on a weekend or in the beginning of the week or whenever I create a new video, you'll get alerted right away. So, hey, let's get it started. Here, this is the scene. I think I typed in Spain or Italy, street scenes, and I found a cool photograph. And this is very generic. This is something you can find online if you want to do something similar to this. But I found this particular scene. I had to search for about 20 minutes to a half an hour to find it. But so it might be difficult to find. I don't know. But in any case, you can try to do, if you can, maybe you can work right from this scene here. You can pause the video right now, and you can draw it, and then we can paint it together. So you can watch my video as we paint. But if you want to draw this first, you can just pause this video, my video here. Or you can also maybe do a screen capture on your cell phone and then send it to your laptop. And that's what I did. I was on my iPhone, actually. And then from my iPhone, I sent it to my laptop on my email. So I just emailed myself the picture. And now I have it across from me. So right across from me to the right, I have my laptop set up with plastic over the keyboard and the screen. So I have some Mylar plastic, and I put it over my keyboard and my screen of my laptop so I don't get splashes on it with watercolor paint. And I have my larger version of this. So this is my cell phone. You can kind of see that's a little smaller. It's just the screen of my cell phone. I have it on my laptop across from me, and it's a lot easier to work if you have a larger picture or larger screen capture of this. So whatever you have to do, I know you're smart, you're savvy, you'll be able to figure this out. So we're going to get started. The main thing about this is the beauty of this scene is the lots of light. You can see here that there's tons of bright light, white. This is stucco. This is the beautiful stucco on these buildings through here. Tons of bright white. We'll leave that white of the paper, actually. And then we have a good amount of medium tones. You can see the greens and the oranges. And then we have some shadowing that's kind of medium tone. And then we have just a little bit of that beautiful, really dark darks. Look at those really dark darks. The clothing of the women here on the street, and they're shopping and maybe chatting. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's in the middle of the afternoon. They're having some time just to talk about maybe the shopping they've done for the day. And there's a gentleman here just, hanging out, sitting on the stairs of his apartment or his place, and he's reading the newspaper, and he's got his dark hat on there, and there's some other people over here in the distance, maybe a man over here in the distance, and he's just chilling out and hanging out by his place and so forth. So this is just a beautiful scene overall. The lights, the medium tones, and the really dark darks. Great balance, perfect balance. This is what you consider this a perfect balance of lights and darks for a composition. And then again, a great scene, just beautiful. People hanging out and chilling out during the day, and they're just doing their thing, shopping and relaxing and reading the newspaper. It just overall has a great vibe. So let's use this to our advantage. We'll make a great painting, and we'll get started. So I'm going to take a break first. Here, I'm just going to relax a bit, take a break, and we'll come back. We'll lay out our drawing, how we're going to have everything sectioned off within our rectangle. So we have a great opportunity now to take a break for 5 or 10 minutes, come back, and we'll start. Okay, see you in just a minute. Bye-bye. Okay, we took a little break. It's always great to take breaks as you work on your drawing and paintings. I think it's really a crucial thing to do when you're working in watercolor. Take lots of breaks along the way as you're creating your paintings. If you're doing just small compositions where you're playing around and just having fun with your watercolors, that's not so much important. But if you're going to create a composition, it's definitely like a full painting or a composition where you're going to try to create a finished painting. It's great just to take breaks along the way. It'll really prove to be a great help to you. You'll be able to refresh each time you take a break. You can come back, you can evaluate things, take a pause, look at things when you're stopping. When you're taking your break and you're stopping as you're putting things down, your brush, your pencil, you'll start to look at things and maybe critique a little bit, make some decisions. Then when you come back from your break, you're going to do the same thing. So it'll almost add time to your work, sort of like time to think about things, make decisions. Just helps overall. So here we're going to zoom back out here. I'll zoom back out, and there we go. And then what we'll do is I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm just going to look at the composition and really take a look at things and just say, okay, let me make some hash marks around my tape. I put a border of artist tape or drafting tape around my paper so that I can make some notes on there. Really important if you want to get a little bit of an advantage. You know, you put some markings on your paper and on your tape, and then you'll be sort of getting a head start on your composition. So here I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, this is about halfway, this roof, and then from there up it's the trees and the foliage up here. So I'll just make that and put roof here. So the roof is here, and another good waypoint I might put here is this is going to be the wall. I'm just going to put wall here. This is where the wall starts, the main wall. That's sort of in the middle distance of the painting. So that's another thing I'm looking at. And then up here, there's the wall up here, so I'm going to put another wall. And other than that, I might be able to put one more. I think if I look at this and I say this is about halfway, this is about halfway across the paper, half and then halfway. So a little beyond halfway is where the wall line, there's a wall line where the gentleman is sitting with his hat and his newspaper. So I'm going to put that here. And I'm going to put wall, hat, figure. Just information that I use now as I'm going to start to draw. And I can sort of transfer that down and just say approximately here too. Wall, hat, figure. And from there, I think we can work everything else in. But those were the main key, design layout considerations I made for this. And once you get to drawing a lot and painting a lot consistently, over and over again, you might be able to sort of, you might not have to do all these hash marks, but if you're like new to watercolor, or you've only been painting 4 or 5 years or so, or drawing and painting 4 or 5 years in watercolor, this still might be a good thing to do to get your points here, because it really does help when you start to draw your scene. And I like to do it. I think it's just a habit now, so I do it because of that. It's just I always tend to do my hash marks around my painting. So let's contour draw this. By contour drawing, I mean that I'm not going to try to find some scrap paper maybe. Okay, here might be some scrap paper. Contour drawing is when you start at a specific location and then you start to render your scene with a pencil drawing, and you're basically going slower, and you're just sort of looking back and forth at your subject matter as you go and getting the scene rendered like this. So you're going slower. Maybe you're making some dots here and there as you go. If you have to slow up and you make, you stop your pencil until you can kind of see, oh, I have to go that far over here, and then I'm going to stop and then go down this way. And you might be looking at your waypoints and going, okay, well, if I'm going to go across here, there's my waypoint for that wall, and now I'm going to go down this way. So as you're contour drawing, you're going through the painting like a trip, like it's like a trip through the painting. You're going and really looking at everything as you're going and kind of estimating your measurements as you go, and using other points that you've already created and other lines you've already created to keep sort of accurate to what you're looking at is. So we wouldn't want to, we wouldn't want to start going like, here's the wall and there's the other wall. We wouldn't want to start making lots of marks like this. So that's sometimes people do, and I've seen that, and I did that when I first started myself, where I made like lots of sketch marks, trying to figure out where everything is. And this is much better if you can do it this way. Even if it doesn't come out perfect, you're still going slower, looking at everything more accurately. And even if you need to use a ruler, sometimes you might need to use a ruler if you feel you need to use a ruler. Sometimes you can take out a ruler and make a couple of lines here and there to get your line straight, or if you want to do a line across this way, you need to make a couple of lines. You can make your lines really light with a ruler, like barely visible. You can make some lines very barely visible on your drawing. Maybe from your points around your drawing, you can make some very barely visible lines. You'll never see them once you paint. And then you can draw from there and go through your drawing slowly and try to get accurate lines and curves and markings as you go. And that's more preferable than trying to sort of keep hashing with lots of lines and erasing and, lots of erasing and like lots of lines like this. That tends to, it sort of ruins the watercolor paper, and it won't look really good. So we try to do this method, trying to, go light the first time, maybe go super light your first time around. And then if you feel like you have it really good and everything looks good, you can go over the top of it a second time darker, so that when you're doing your watercolor painting, you'll have it. So, but contour drawing is really just trying to do it the first time with one line, going more slowly, accurately, and you tend to get a really great drawing that way. So that's just a little tip on contour drawing. Maybe I'll do a video on contour drawing soon too. But I think most of you are pretty much up on contour drawing and drawing in general. So for the people that are new, that's more of an insight for you. So let's get started. So we're going to contour draw again. So I'm going to start here at my roof. And we're going to go across. And then I have my wall line, which I made here. So I have that. I know I've got to go up. And I have to go up maybe the same distance from here to here. I have to go up. And then there's the roof. There we go, roof. And there's clay tile roofing here. So we're going to do those arch type shapes. And then this goes up. So I'm just going to have a fun time here. Here we go. And across. Like that. So that's the main roof line here across. Then this one, this next roof line is about here. And then I see that it comes down. I see some curves. These are the arch-like shapes, curve-like shapes of the roof tiles, the clay tiles, those orange clay tiles we were looking at. And then here there's another roof section that comes down here. And it comes down a little bit there, and this one's a little more irregular, so I'm going to okay. Now, I notice I went a little too far with this. No problem, I do a little erasing. And I'd say this is about here. Now, if I take my pencil and I use it as a level mark, and I look across, it's almost level with this over here, about halfway between here and here. So that looks about good there. It's about, again, about level with that. That looks good. And it's a little bit wavy here, and there's some and again, if you go over your sometimes I have to erase a little bit, no big deal. So I just erase that little bit. And that's really pretty simple. And now I'm going to take this line and transfer it down. And that's right about where we're looking at here for our wall line. And that's where the figure is sitting. And he's about a little bit above the bottom of this tape here, a little bit above that. He starts to appear here, the seated figure reading his newspaper, the gentleman there. So we'll just sort of have that there, that little section. And this is I'm just sort of making this a little bit a rough edge going up this way. That's another roof line going across this way here. And I notice it's not perfect. I tend to think I have a little bit too much roof here, but I'm going to let that go. We'll see how it turns out. Again, things never turn out exactly the way you want it to when you're doing your contour drawing, but that's okay. We just keep working with it. Now we're doing our shadow underneath the roof. Like that. And then a little bit of shadow here. And then we have some shadow under here. And then some more shadow under here. And let's go back to here. We're going to take a look at this and we're going to say, okay, the roof comes down there. It goes up there. This is a wall line here. So we're going to go down to there. And this comes down here and then goes up there. So that's some shadow there. And then we have a figure over here and he's about there. And we have our figure over here. This is the first figure we'll do. And he's sort of, you can see he's got his arm out there. We want to capture that, his arm out at his side. So he's kind of just feeling confident and he's standing at his residence here. And there's some shadows over here. There's a shadow over here. We're going to we'll just leave this sort of, we're not going to have every single bit of the drawing drawn out with our pencil because we know we're going to leave a lot of white paper all through here. So this is all going to be white paper going through here. So we're not going to get too concerned. All right, you know what? Perfect time for a break. We've done quite a bit of our drawing. We got our first figure in over here. He's smaller, so we want to remember this figure is smaller, very much smaller, because he's off in the distance here. And then our other figures that we're going to do here are much larger. So we want to remember that. And if we look with our pencil and we say if this figure's head is here, we can notice that the other figure's heads are just a little bit higher. So we'll just want to remember that maybe the figures here, their heads are a little higher. There's two women standing chatting. Let's remember that. And then we have the gentleman here sitting, reading his newspaper. And so we recall that. And we should be pretty good. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, just as long as we get the idea of really the overall look of this. So no worries. Let's take a break. Again, breaks are great, everybody. Take lots of breaks. We'll take a break now. We'll come back. We'll draw our figures over here. The two women chatting together and the gentleman sitting down reading his newspaper. And when we get those figures in, we'll take another break and then we'll start painting. So we're going to have just a bit more time of drawing and then we're going to get in and start doing our paintings. Okay, we'll be right back. All right, we've taken a break. We're coming back now, and we're going to start working on our three figures that are in the foreground. And I would say that we're quite along. We're really starting to finish up the painting. Actually, the last few things we're doing are the two figures here, the two women chatting, and the gentleman here sitting. Once we have that completed, we're actually home free, and then we can start painting. So let's do the two figures, and I'm going to start off with the head here. And there's a woman. She's chatting here. She's got her. So I'm just doing a basic head shape, her hair, and then her face here. This is a profile. Basically, she's in profile, not even profile. She's actually turning away. So if you can imagine, her head is turned away from us. So all we're really seeing is a little bit of the side of her face there. And then she has on a dark coat. So we're going to put that dark coat on, and she's... And again, you see I'm doing contour drawing here, so I'm just going with the flow of things. She's got her coat on, and she maybe has a bag of something here, maybe some groceries she's bought from the market, and she's chatting with the woman across from her, and she's got a skirt on, and the skirt kind of goes up, and it flows down this way and flows up this way. And then her legs flow down to the ground there, her feet. And that's all you have to really do. Once you get the flow of things like that, that's good. And then there's a shadow that's behind her, just behind her a little bit, and then it goes off like that, and then it trails out of the scene here. So we're just going to do this shadowing, and there's some more shadowing over here. So we're seeing the shadowing from the other left side of the scene, but we're not really seeing those buildings, but we know that they are casting a shadow this way. So we know the sunlight's coming from this side. And we can always put an insignia up top here that the light's coming from this way. And we're not going to make a big deal of it. And I have to say that sometimes when you're pencil drawing things, they don't look as good until you paint it. So that's also a good thing to remember. This is something really important to remember. Does that make sense? It's real important to remember that a lot of times when you draw something with pencil, it's not going to look nearly as good as when you put the paint on the actual paper. So you'll see what I'm getting at once we start doing our figures here. Because when you start to paint these figures with your dark paint, you're going to notice that they're going to look much better when you've painted them and rendered them with the watercolor paint. So let's let that be as it is. We're not going to, again, worry too much. We're just getting down a general idea of the shapes of the woman's head, her dress, her coat, her skirt, and then her jacket, her skirt, and her legs. Then there's the other woman here. She's standing across, and she's leaning against the wall. So we're going to have her, and I'm just looking at her clothing. It's pretty much across from this clothing here, same height pretty much. Her clothing, her dress is just the same amount of, a bit of height as that. And then she comes up this way, and then her head is just a little lower. So I'll put her head there, and her hair. So I'll put her head as like an oval. The hair is an oval. And then her face is following the oval. Like that. And she's looking down. She has her hand up, and she has some shopping bags here. So we have some shopping bags here, and they're white. And that's good. That's plenty fine. We don't have to get too much detail. And then she has a shadow behind her like that on the wall. And her legs are here. And that should be plenty. Two women chatting. They're shopping. They have some shopping bags, and they're talking and having a nice time. And there's a gentleman over here. He's having his fun here. He's reading his paper. And we're going to put him in here, and he's reading his paper. And his legs are here, so he's sitting. And he's maybe sitting there on a step here. A concrete step, and I'm just erasing a little bit of that. It doesn't have to be too detailed, just enough to know that he's here. He's reading his newspaper. Maybe his newspaper is a little more there, like that. Okay, plenty good enough details. We don't need too much here, just a little bit. We're going to blend it all in really simply. We're going to render this very simply, this whole scene. And you'll see how incredible it looks just from the simple basic, again, the basic idea that we said, design principle of light, medium tones, and the darks of the clothing on these figures, and you're going to see how beautiful this looks just in itself with the colors and the tonal value pattern. So, okay, we're really looking good here. We got our figures in. Here, we got our distant figure in there. The rest of the drawing is good. Lots of white paper. We have our shadow over here. So I put a little bit of pencil mark on my shadow just so I remember to fill that in with shadow. And that looks good. And we have some shadow over here under the figures. And that'll tie right into this shadow here. Okay, perfect time. Let's take a break. Take breaks. Take lots of breaks, everybody. Okay, we did our figures, our last 3 figures here, and we're all set. We'll take a break, and then we'll start to work in our paint. Okay, we've taken a break, 10-15 minutes, stretch our legs. I'm going to pour some water into my water container here, fresh, clean water. I'm going to get a medium-sized brush, so I have a Raphael number 8 for our painting here. That should be good to do most everything in this painting. I think this number 8 is going to be fine. Raphael number 8. Kolinsky sable brush. Watercolor brush, round point. Now, we're going to be doing a simple color combination, color scheme. We're not going to get too sophisticated. Let's do yellow ochre, sap green, maybe some cobalt blue, cerulean blue for sure. We're going to have some cerulean blue, and that should be good. Raw umber too, maybe a little raw umber. All right, let's go in and we'll start doing our... Now this foliage and trees in the background here, we can render this real simply. We don't have to really... we don't have to get overwhelmed with details here. Let's just get the basic idea of we're doing some trees back here, splashing, cobalt blue. I would say just, you know, get the tonal value on there. Don't worry about it. Maybe we know we're going to have an orange roof, like a red clay orange type roof. Let's mix some of that in here too. So you can make a little bit of cadmium red and yellow ochre over here. Maybe put a little bit of that into the greens. Have fun with this. This is really your fun time because you don't have really too much to worry about. You're just going to add in your greens, sap green, yellow ochre, We know, you know, looking at this, we know it's trees in the background here because we have roofs. So we know. And we put in some of that red and orange just to cobalt blue, cerulean blue, put in some darks, darker darks there. This essentially is a medium tone. You know, a medium tonal value. These greens in the background here, so it's not going to be super dark. It's going to be a medium tone. Lots of greens. And then I'd give it a little waviness to the greens here, just like that. Because we have those roofs, they're very wavy looking, clay tiles. French ultramarine blue, some darks, you know, put a little mysterious darks in there once in a while over here in these in the tree areas, the forest area here, some darks, just a little bit of mysterious darks. Some splashes, do some splashes, definitely splash in these areas. Splashing looks great. It really has that feeling of leaves and so forth. And we're just going to work our way around. And as you can see, I've sort of in an abstract way put in all of the trees and leaves and bushes and all of that very quickly in the background here, because that's not really the focal point of the painting. As long as it's mostly green with some, you know, changes in color, mostly green, then we know it's trees, it's bushes, we don't have to worry about it. And then the same with the roofs. Once we start working in these roofs, let's work in the roof areas here. We know those are going to be red clay tile roofs, orange and red, orange and red. We see a roof line here, so I'm going to paint that in. There's like there's a definite line that goes up this roof. Those are the clay tiles that are set on the edges of the roof. So if we can get those set really well, we're going to be good. And then we just sort of blend that in. And we try to blend some of that in. And then we take some more and we try to keep everything There's some lights here. I would go with yellow ochre. So I'm going to take some yellow ochre and just skip here across on these points there. So what I did is I basically filled in this area between the trees and the background foliage and the shrubs and all that interesting greenery behind there. I went between there and over here on this line of the darker orange and red. I went with some yellow ochre just to put some color on there, because in the photograph it's not white paper, or it's not really bright white. Maybe there's a few spots of bright white, but very little. So I want to keep it, I want to keep our tonal values accurate. And then once we have that, then we can start doing our lines like that. Does that make sense? Let's keep it accurate. The only really white paper is over here. And you can see I leaned into my paper, and there's some messy spots, no big deal. Watercolor is a messy medium. Don't let it get to you. Have fun with it. If you have some spots that get a little messy, don't worry about it. Here I'm gonna just get some color on the paper. This is the roof again. Let's get some color on there. And we will go over this with more detail. But for right now, let's get on some wash. Let's get a nice wash on here. Orange and red, that's all. Orange and red. You can go right into the shadow over here with some of that orange. Same here, you can go right into the shadow. You can go into the shadow over there. Any place where there's a dark shadow, you can go into that with a warm color. That's going to look better when you go and do your shadow. So that's a good thing to remember. There we go. Okay, looks great. And again, don't worry about it if there's some marks here and there. Sometimes if you lean into your paint and you make a spot on your paper, later on you can fix that. We'll show you how to do that later. So if you do have some spots here and there, no worries. Splashes are good. I'm going to splash a little bit of paint on here. Good. Okay, perfect time for a break now. We've got the greens in, our distant hills here, bushes, trees. We simply did it in a real fast, efficient way. Lots of greens with some sap green, raw sienna, raw umber a little bit. We did some yellow ochre, French ultramarine blue here and there, little spots of darks, and we're all set. Then we did here on the roof sections, we went in and we did cadmium red, cadmium orange, a little bit of yellow ochre, and we got a nice wash over the roof area. And we worked our roof wash right into our shadow area. We said we had these shadow areas under the roof eaves, and we just worked some of our orange and red and yellow roof colors right into that. That'll give it more interest when we go to paint the shadows. All right, let's take a break. Good time for a break. We did a lot of work here so far, so let's take a break, take a rest, and we'll come back. All right, we had a really enjoyable break, 10-15 minutes. We relaxed. You can even take an hour break if you want, or a couple hours, or come back the next day. So you might even start your painting, get quite a bit through the painting, and then you can come back the next day and pick up again. There's no reason why we can't stop for a day and come back the next day, because really this style of painting that we do here, where we're doing washes and we're pretty much painting alla prima, you can do work and then stop and then come back the next day and continue on working. Looks just as good when you do it that way, or if you continue to work as we're doing here. So I am working with 10-15 minute breaks in between here, but you could work this type of painting and work the drawing one day, partial parts of the painting the next, and then work on it another day. So it's up to you. You're the artist. You decide how you're doing your painting, how much you want to do, and when you want to do it. At this point, we are really coming along here. Looks really terrific, everything. I think we'll do the shadows. Let's do the shadows next. So let's get some purple here. I'm going to use purple for the shadows. Now with the purple, let's get some purple up here in the foliage. So just put a little bit of purple when you start out over here, a little bit in the roofing area, the roof tiles. Get some purple in there. It's always good to add, if you're using a color, it should be used in other sections of your painting. So you wouldn't want to use one color in your painting in just one section. If you're going to use a color, mix it around, add it to other portions of your painting. It's going to make everything look unified. So as you can see, I just put in some purple into my roof and my tree and distant mountain colors here. Okay, now I'm going to go with cerulean blue and purple for my shadowing. Also French ultramarine blue with a little burnt umber. Darkest parts of the shadow are going to be right under the eave of the roof. So now you're going to see how this really, let's make that darkest dark shadowing right under there, like that. And you can see I'm not getting too fancy. I'm just really kind of getting the Then I go in and get the cerulean blue and purple. As well as some red. Mix some red in there. Keep some of the warm colors in there too. And blend it in with the darkest darks. And that will look phenomenal. If you can imagine, that's really going to look good. Purple, cerulean blue, burnt umber, just a little bit. Then I'm just going to do some markings here, just a few. And then we have here clay tile roofing that comes down. And we'll go back and we'll do some more details on this clay roof. But this really looks good, that shadowing. And we always mix in that different colors in there. Cerulean blue, French ultramarine blue, purple. All right, now we did do wash. We added purple to our rooftop up here. And when we did that purple up there, we wet our paper, which means to do details on the roof right now is not going to be productive. So let's remember that. When you add a wash to some area that you're working on, you have to let that completely dry before you go over and do other washes for details. So let's let this completely dry. Again, we're going to take another break. We're going to let this completely dry, this roof section, these clay tile roofs. We're going to let that completely dry, and then we'll go back and do our details on the clay tiles here and there, just to give it more detail, because it's right now it's not completely looking, it's not looking defined enough that we can say it's a clay tile roof. But when we're done with our details, we're going to see it will look much better. So let's let this completely dry, the roof section, the orange and red with purple over top. We did another glazing of purple on top of that. We'll let this completely dry 100%, and we'll come back. And we did our shadows, so we're in good shape. We got a lot of good shadow colors here. And that's looking really good. And maybe we can take a little red and yellow and just put that out there a little bit. Same with this. Okay, let's not get carried away. Let's let this dry. Let things dry. Much better to let things dry. Okay, we'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up some of our details on the clay roof. Okay, we're back. We took a break. Breaks are fantastic. Everyone take breaks. Let's take breaks. I cleaned up my palette just a little bit with some paper towel and water. Let's keep our palette clean. Always remember, if your palette is clean, you're going to be much happier because your colors are going to be more vibrant, exciting. They'll be more intense, your colors, and more definable, more interesting. If you tend to keep mixing and mixing and mixing on your palette and you don't keep the palette clean, your chances of having muddy colors is much more. So muddy colors, we'll lose the identity of the colors. So here, we're looking at our colors on our painting. We can definitely pick out and say, yeah, sap green, French ultramarine blue. We can see some yellow ochre. We can see cadmium red. We can see cadmium orange. We can see French ultramarine blue. We can identify the colors on our painting. We want to have that. We wouldn't want to look at the washes on our painting and not know what the colors are. We want to be able to see the actual colors in our palette on our painting itself. So if we can get that done in our paintings, our paintings are going to look more exciting, more beautiful. Okay, all right, let's keep going here. We added in this little bit of roof over here while we were taking a break, and let's do our figures now. Let's get our figures in. So I guess we'll do burnt umber, French ultramarine blue to get that really dark, burnt sienna, a little bit of purple. Okay, now we're going to look and say, okay, there's the hair and clothing. See, I'm just really taking my brush and just really using the tip of my brush to get the shapes. And then I can spin my brush around this way and just take my hand and spin my hand around this way. And we can get the okay. And let's do this woman here. She's looking down. And I'm just placing the paint carefully. And that's really it. Now, I'm going to add a little blue to that and a little bit of yellow ochre. I see a little bit of shadow that's not quite as dark as the dress. And there's a little spot of clothing there. And as you can see, orange, cadmium red, flesh tones, shadows. We tie those in, and that's as simple as that. You saw how I just really placed the paint, dabs of paint. I just dabbed the paint on, dabbed the paint on. If you have to spin your brush around this way, you spin your brush around the opposite way and dab the paint on, just a few spots here and there, and you just sort of work your paint around your figure according to your pencil drawing. And then you're fine. That's all you need. And then we have a little bit of a shadow there along the wall. The flesh tones we have here. Just a little dab. And that's fine. If you find you went over a line, you can just lift up some paint with the tissue. You can add a little more darks if you want. I would say let the first, if you're doing your first attempt at the main washes of your figures, let them dry first, 100%. Then if you want to go back and do a little bit of touch-ups, then you do it then. If you try to touch up a figure when it's wet, it'll just make things worse. So always try to remember that. Try to touch up your figures once they dry 100% if you're going to add some touch-ups to them. And then here we're just looking at our seated figure. This gentleman here, he's reading his newspaper. He's enjoying the day. And of course, I'm careful to make, he's sitting in a stairway with the wall So let's keep that wall. And there's some darks here. And there's some shadow behind his leg there. Some shadow there. And flesh color, cadmium red, yellow ochre. And this figure is coming along nicely here. And that's all you need. A little bit of color there, darks. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. Lots of French ultramarine blue to get the dark. You dry off a little bit of the you take off a little bit of paint off the brush with a tissue so that you don't have too much paint on there, and then you just go in and dab along there. We can fix this with some white paint later. There's a wall here like this. A wall here. He's inside the wall in a sense. He's behind the wall. So we'll take some white paint and fix that a little bit. I made a little smudge there. No big deal. And then he's here and he's got his paper, and so we're going to have a little bit of shadow there. That looks good. Some darker shadow here. A bit of darker shadow there. And let's put some dark shadows. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, cerulean blue, burnt sienna. Okay, now we're going to put in some shadow here. Like that. Just get it on there, and that's it. Best to do that. Don't fuss around with shadows. Get them in fast. Shadows go in quick. Here, there's a few more. Add some warm colors to the shadows while they're not quite dry. They can be a little darker at the over here. They get lighter as they all right. Now you can see I'm going to try to do a little touch up over here. There are some little interesting shadow lines. I'm going to try to get those in there. All right. And I'm going to do a little bit of color there. You can see I did a little bit of yellow ochre and cadmium red for that wall. So we want to have a little bit of color there. That makes it feel like we can see the ground, the ground area. If we add a little bit of wash, to this area here where the women are standing and the gentleman is. If we can add a little bit of wash to that, we're going to be better. So I put in a little bit of accent, a little bit of accent there with some shadowing, and just so that we see that that's a walkway there. And that's all we need to really do, and I think that's fine. So now we're really looking in good shape here. We can do some yellow ochre over here, it looks like. Again, we're not going to do this figure over here in the distance since we just added a wash of yellow ochre. But you can see I added a little bit of wash of yellow ochre, a little bit of our grayish mix there, just so we have a little bit of contrast there. But it's mostly, you can see, mostly yellow ochre, a warm color. A little bit of yellow ochre on the wall over here too. Just a tiny bit of wash on the wall here and there. Just a little bit, not everywhere. And I'll put some more yellow ochre over here. And I just blotted up some. A little bit of cerulean blue there. And I'm just adding some splashing. Give texture to that wall closer up. So closer to us, we're going to see more details. So some of those splashes and that's good. Okay, perfect time to let this dry. Let's let this dry 100% and we'll come back and we'll do some final touch-ups. We'll add some more detail to the roof area here. We'll definitely put in this figure here. We'll get this figure rendered nicely. He's, in the distance here, so we're not going to do much, but we want to let this all dry 100% before we go in and do any more washes. All right, we'll come right back. Okay, we're just coming back from a break. We're really pretty much set now. We have pretty much everything completed in the painting. We just have to do this figure here in the distance. Very minor. That's not really, too critical right now, too important. It's just a figure in the distance here. We can do that real quickly. No big deal. We have our main figures here in the foreground, completely, set. They look fantastic. We have to do some roof work here on the clay tiles just to make this a little more, read a little more correctly. So let's do that. Let's get in here and we'll do some French, this is cadmium red, burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, purple, cerulean blue, burnt umber. All right, let's just get these in. Just some lines. They seem to be intermittent, so we don't have to worry too much. And that's all we have to do. We just want to make those roof clay tiles look real. And if if we do a couple arched, so if we do a little curved lines, that's going to look better. And these lines are more and we'll do some more curved lines just to as you can see, I'm just doing a couple curved lines for the clay tiles. I'm not getting too detailed. That's not the focal point of the painting. We just want to see that it looks, you know, it looks like a clay tile roof with the clay tiles. They have that curved look. Over here, we can let that sort of fade out. No big deal. We could add a few splashes up there. Okay, that looks good. Let's do our distant figure. Darker pants, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. I'll take my tissue, just take a little bit of paint off so we don't have too much there, and then let's do the just some legs there. Good enough. A little bit of flesh color, but keeping it more darker, maybe darker brown, because it's not that close to us. It's in the distance, so we want to see that it's some skin tones, but not too much. And I dry off some of the and that to me looks good. I don't want to go too much more. And I'll add a little more cadmium red just to highlight some spots. And with a painting like this, sometimes, you know, you can adjust things. You might come back and do this painting a second time and think to yourself, you know, maybe I'll change the roof design a little bit. This roof looks pretty good, but, you know, if you look at architecture or you study some architectural type drawings or pictures of roofs and buildings, you might say to yourself, well, I could maybe change this roof to look a little more interesting than what I have here. I'm painting it just the way I see it in the photograph, but that doesn't mean you can't go in and enhance this painting and make it look even better. And that's always the thing with being an artist. You're in control. You're the artist. You're in control. You can change things in your painting to make it look better. So you can change a little bit of a roof angle, or maybe some details on the roof angle, or maybe you can change, you know, maybe in this scene you might want to leave out this figure in the distance, or maybe you like this distance in this figure in the distance. These type of things you can change around. You can change really anything around. You're the artist. You're going to create your painting and you know, design everything the way you want it to look. But we did go pretty much close to the exactly to the picture that we had. And I'm going to take a little bit of titanium white and just clean up this spot here on the wall so that this looks better. And everything else looks pretty good. I might add a little shadow here. To that figure. I think that looks a little better. And I think other than that, it looks pretty good. So let's call this finished. Hope you had fun with this painting. I hope you'll try this 2-3 times. The real exciting part of this painting is the shadow and the light, the real bright white wall here, the stucco wall of this street scene, and the figures. The figures are the main excitement of this painting. And we'll peel off the tape here. We'll see if we can get a better, closer look at this. And if we peel the tape off, you'll see it kind of makes it look a little more interesting. And you can always create a painting that's with less surroundings. You can zoom in, create a painting that's just really, you know, maybe, let me see if I have a mat here. Let's take a look. You know, sometimes we can take a mat and we'll just, sometimes you can section off a painting to make it look more interesting. Maybe something like that. You could do a couple figures and mat this off like so, instead of doing all the rest. Something like that. Have fun with it. And we'll see if we can zoom in a little bit. Okay, so that's basically the painting. We just zoomed in a little bit here. You can see it has a good feeling of light. You can really feel the light coming from the left-hand side across the painting, and the figures in here are really looking solid with that really dark tonal value there. That's the real excitement of the dark tonal values against the white, bright wall in the background here behind them. So that really makes things interesting. I can zoom in a little more. So you can change this painting around again if you look at interesting ways to paint it. So this might look a little more interesting like that. You still have some of that green in the background. That looks good. Like that. That might be something that would look pretty good. So it's all up to you. You can always map these different. You can start out a painting larger, and then you can take it and trim it down, make it smaller, and really like, you know, sort of crop it in to make it look even better. So that's something we can do as artists too. If we want to make something look a little better, we can crop things down and make it look exciting. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for watching again. If you're new, you haven't been here to this to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing. Also, if you hit the notification bell, you'll be alerted each week as we create new paintings, and we do this style painting every week. Watercolors, drawing and painting watercolors, and we do every type of subject matter you can imagine. This week happens to be figure work, but we do everything: boats, you know, seascapes, landscapes, cityscapes. We do flowers, still life, everything. So come on by, keep coming back, We'll learn a lot together. We'll have fun. Okay. Bye-bye.